When Brandon and I moved back to Michigan, wow, did we think we know what we were doing? And boy, did we get it wrong. You know, we both thought we lived here before, we grew up here, we had family here, and we've done a ton of research. But once we got here, we realized how different things really were. You know, we were in a different phase of life when we lived in Michigan had compared to when we were moving back. And there was a lot of things that we would have done differently. So if you're planning on making a move to Michigan, especially if you're coming from out of state, well, this video might just save you from making the same mistakes we did. Hey, if you're new to me and new to my channel, my name's Eric, and I make these videos to help you guys make better decisions when making that move here to Michigan. You know, my wife and I moved back to Michigan after a year in California, and it was a big shift for us. Now, after helping hundreds of families make that same move from places like Chicago, Denver, Phoenix, LA, I've seen a pattern. Okay, there's a handful of things that almost everyone wishes they'd done differently. All right, so number one, and probably the most common mistake that we see most people make, and heck, we fell into this as well, so we're guilty as charged, but if we were to do it differently, we wouldn't even start with the house. Okay, we would have a general idea of what we were going for. Yes, like number of bedrooms, square footage, style home, all of those, right? But what I do know is some of those things change based on the area you want to live and what's available. Okay, so what we can't change are the houses in those communities, but we can look at different communities that fit our lifestyle. And this is what I'm talking about when I say looking at the homes second. Okay, I want to start with the communities, and that's the mistake that we really made. Okay, so this is my best advice to you guys, you know, that are making that move here, is start with the community, start with the city, start with the location. Figure out where you want your ideal lifestyle to be, because the daily routine, the community, the vibe of the area, and you can always change things about your house that make it more accommodating. So if we could do it over, we would 100% start with the lifestyle. Okay, hands down. You know, I'd be asking questions like, where are the parks near my house? How's the traffic? You know, are the neighbors out walking their dogs, or are they hiding in their garages? That's the type of stuff that matters long term. All right, so number two, we would scout cities like a local, not like a tourist. Okay, and we did what everybody else did. Heck, we didn't even have these videos when we were moving back to Michigan, you know, but most people are Googling best places to live near Detroit or Ann Arbor. And we looked at a bunch of cool pictures and photos that we found online, and we read a bunch of school ratings and, you know, things that were people saying on Reddit. But here's what we didn't do. Okay, and what I tell everybody, all my clients to do nowadays, is spend time in the neighborhood like you already live there. Okay, and that's the best advice I can give you. Go to the grocery store, sit at the coffee shops, heck, drive the school pickup lines if you got kids and see what the traffic's like, you know, at 3:30 or 4 o'clock when schools are getting out. See what life actually feels like on a Wednesday at 4 p.m., you know, and if the city looks perfect online, you know, that's your cue. Dig deeper. Real life isn't curated just from the pictures you see online. And if you just can't be here in person to visit just yet, that's where me and my team come in. You know, we'll help you see the city through a local's lens and point you in the right direction. All right, so number three, we would ask better questions about the schools. And I'm not talking about what you can just find online with Google, greatschools.org, or niche.com. All of that's public information. You know, the school ratings are based on test scores, and you can go find all that information readily available online. But what we didn't ask is, what are the cultures of each of these schools? You know, what's the parent community like? Are there any enrichment programs, clubs, support services that we should know about? You know, a 9 out of 10 school might not feel like a 9 out of 10 if it doesn't fit your family's lifestyle or needs, or maybe the parent community there just doesn't get along, and that's really not enjoyable for anybody. So my best advice to you is tour the school. See if your kids would actually thrive there, and if you feel connected to the school community. You know, talk to the administration, talk to some of the parents, see what life is really like behind the scenes. All right, and number four, we would give ourselves much more time than we anticipated. You know, we were on a timeline. We had to be here for a job relocation, and I had a specific start date. You know, not dissimilar to a lot of folks who are moving to Michigan that might be in your same shoes right now. If you're looking at a job relocation and they're giving you a start date or a general time frame, you're like, wow, that's 1-2 months away. You know, that doesn't seem like a lot of time. And the reality is it's really not. You know, if you're looking to buy a home, you know, there's timelines that we need to back up through. And, you know, I can go through those in our Zoom call, which we always do, just making sure we have timeline all set up. But my best advice is, you know, start at least 3 months out. Okay. 3 to 6 months is really the ideal time to get enough information and learn a little bit more about the communities that you're going to be looking at, the school districts, the idiosyncrasies and the kind of the nuances of each of these cities and what they have to offer from a lifestyle perspective. And that helps you kind of settle into where you think you're going to be. And once you get boots on the ground, then you can start narrowing down, like, yes, I targeted this city. It feels right. It looks right. It smells right, whatever that means.
Smells like victory.
But those are the things that you can start dialing in if you just have the time. But if you got to be here in like 3 weeks, you might as well just grab the first rental that you see near the office or where you're going to be working, because 3 weeks is not a lot of time to figure out where the best location or your lifestyle might be. You might just want to start that process once you get here. All right, and number 5 is we would focus 100% of our efforts on the lifestyle fit, not just focusing on the good areas or the best cities to live in. If you want a list of all the top rated cities to live in Metro Detroit, I've got videos on this channel that will talk specifically about each of those. But here's what I mean by the lifestyle fit. If you're somebody that's looking for trails and you want to be out in nature or you want to be near water, well, some of the best cities in Michigan might not even offer that. Okay, so if you're somebody that maybe wants to be closer to the downtown area, have access to shopping and restaurants and coffee shops and be walkable to a downtown, like a bigger city, well, there's some cities in Metro Detroit that are on the best places to live that don't offer that. These are the things that you really need to be honing in on when you're talking about lifestyle fit. Your version of good might be somebody else's version of nice, and that might be somebody else's version of, hey, never. We're never living there. So if Brianna and I were doing this again, we would 100% focus on the lifestyle fit and then reverse engineer from there. All right, and number 6, we would trust the process a lot more this time around. Feeling rushed and overwhelmed through the process was never a good feeling. That just really didn't sit well with me. We were making decisions very quickly about where we wanted to live, where we just landed. Really wasn't a question. We moved pretty close to the office of where I was going to be working, and that was the main priority. But that was the wrong decision. Okay. And, when we were house hunting, there were definitely moments where we felt overwhelmed. Is this the right school district? Is this the right commute going to work? It's normal. And moving is a big deal. Having made all these mistakes, what I learned through the process and what I help you guys understand now is this. You don't need to know everything right away. You just needed the right support and the right plan that makes sense for you. You don't need to predict the future. You just need a clear next step. And that's exactly what my team and I help you with. All right, so this wasn't originally on the list, but I'm going to throw a bonus in here because there's one thing I think Brianna and I are so glad we did when we moved back to Michigan. It was to be closer to family. And if you're on the fence about moving back to Michigan to be closer to family, this is just my experience. I'm really happy we did it. It's because I grew up knowing my cousins, knowing, all my aunts and uncles who were all within, a 30 to 45 minute radius, of our house. And we hung out with them all the time. So that was my childhood and we loved it. Even so much so, my grandparents started a family tradition that brought the whole entire family on vacation. Okay. And they had 8 kids. And my dad's one of 8 on my dad's side of the family. It's a huge family. Okay. Tons of kids. And now we're still continuing that tradition today. And I think it would I was just thinking about this. It would be weird if my kids saw their cousins 1 or 2 times a year, like family vacation and Christmas. But they see them all the time. Okay. And that's just how I was growing up. So if you're on the fence about moving home to be closer to family, that was our experience with it. And we are so happy we did. All right, so hopefully some of the mistakes that Brandon and I made moving back to Michigan are helpful so you can avoid making the same mistakes. Now, if you're planning to move, whether it's in 1 month or 1 year from now, and hopefully you're learning from our journey, don't just chase the listings, chase alignment of lifestyle, chase the version of a life that actually works for you and your family. And if you want a guide who's been through it and can walk you through it step by step, I'd love to help you guys. Use the link in the description to book a Zoom call with me. We'll talk about your lifestyle, your timeline, and make a game plan to keep things clear and keep your stress low. And if this video was helpful for you guys, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so you're the first to learn every time I come out with a new video, which is every single week. We've got more videos playing right here on all things living in Michigan, so go check those out, and I will see you on the next one.